Our third speaker from the panel, I'm very pleased to welcome you here today, is Alex Gerbrandij. Alex is on secondment from the Netherlands government to the European Commission. He started off in AIDCO, that transmuted itself into DevCo earlier this year. He's now moved again to the European External Action Service, which of course is the new body which is really trying to make a reality of European foreign engagement across the world. And he's heading, I think, the development unit within that. So, Alex, you're very well positioned, I think, to comment on this topic, and you have the floor.
Thank you, Richard. And actually, I'm not heading that division. I'm part of that division, and it's good that you explain because I'm wearing a lot of hats here. So I'm officially representing the European External Action Service. I used to work for DevCo or Europe Aid until the 1st of October, so that's really the Commission, more familiar maybe for you. And I'm also on secondment from the Netherlands, so I can speak on behalf of the EU, the Commission, and the Netherlands if you wish. But I will focus on the Commission, so it's a bit on my previous job. Thanks again, Karen, and ODI for the invitation, for having me. I think, first of all, on the document itself, I had the privilege to see an advanced copy and read a bit on the train. And I think it's a very welcome exercise. I think it's very timely for Busan. It's of high quality. I think you can see a lot of efforts have been put into it. And I think it's really a needed input for Busan and to have a better understanding on where we stand or where we don't stand with regard to transparency. I think it's also good to have this ranking because I think peer pressure is good. Although there's already a bit of fuss ongoing Brussels that last year you had also this exercise done and the Commission was then on the 4th place and now we're on the 9th place. Maybe because I just left the Commission, could be an explanation, but for the colleagues it's not that good, I think. But still we're in the group of fair, so on the 9th place. And I have to say that we have already published our International Aid Transparency Initiative standard data, IATI data, on the 14th of October. And I think I did a bit of calculation. If we would have included them already in this exercise, I think we would have gone up maybe to the 3rd or 2nd place. I don't know, but at least that should be said here. And we're also ranked in other fora on transparency, and we're doing a bit better than a 9th place. But I won't go into again ranking. But at least it's important to do because it creates a bit of fuss and peer pressure, as I said. So what I want to do is say a bit on the current state of play with regard to transparency, the international level, EU and the Commission. And then secondly, these 3 levels I will deal with a bit on the way forward or what challenges we are heading. So basically what already has been said by High Commissioner, the rationale for transparency is clear because it supports a lot of other things. It's against corruption, you can name a few, but also it supports the Paris Declaration principles on aid effectiveness. And I think this is very well laid down in the document itself and put forward by the High Commissioner, so it supports alignment, ownership, the results agenda. And to me personally, I think it's very important with respect to the donor coordination and the division of labor. I will continue working on that division of labor amongst member states, better joint programming of member states. And sometimes it's stunning to see the lack of information we have on actually what we are doing. Where are we, in which countries, which sectors, and that's across the board. It's not only for the Commission, but for the member states. And if we want to coordinate, we need to at least have this information. So clearly transparency is the fundament of aid effectiveness. So where are we now at the international level? You all know that the Accra Agenda for Action was agreed in 2008 as follow-up of the 2005 Paris Declaration. And it included very clear and good commitments on transparency. Then, of course, IATI, the International Aid Transparency Initiative, was launched, led by the UK, very good initiative, subscribed to by, amongst others, the Netherlands, the Commission, and others. I think it were 16 by the time, and now 21. And I think IATI really filled the gap, because we have information on aid from the DAC CRS, but that's always 1 to 2 years old, and it's more for reporting, and it's not used for future and current data. I think there's clearly, and that was always an argument of our colleagues working on DAC statistics, that there's a trade-off between timeliness and quality. But I think if you put your information out more timely, then you also put pressure on the quality. So I think that this goes hand in hand. And the question is still, we need this information anyway. Our management needs it, we need it. and our member states need it. And of course, 100% perfection is not the objective here. I think we should have the indicative information out there, and well, that's the argument of Karen all the time, is CRS, the DAC statistics aren't perfect either. So this is where we are at the international level. At the EU level, last year our Ministers for Development agreed in the Council, that was December 2010, on so-called Council conclusions on accountability and transparency, with some concrete actions there, amongst which we want to establish a kind of EU database, which is managed by the Commission Joint Research Centre, which is based in Italy, and which is, I think, a kind of complementary to IATI, where IATI is a kind of what you could say not human readable information standard. You should go to the IATI registry and you know what I mean. And this TR8 will make this information into accessible, user-friendly information with graphs. So if you want to know what the Commission is doing in Uganda, for instance, in education, you can go there and get this information. So we have to get that up and running, and not only for the Commission, but for the EU-wide. 2 days ago, the ministers agreed on the so-called Council conclusions for the EU position in Busan, which includes now a EU transparency guarantee. This, I think, is put on the table somewhere, and you can have a look. It's just a one-pager, not the conclusions itself, it's longer, but the guarantee is one page. And it includes a commitment to work towards IATI, to work to more transparency towards the partner countries, also a call for fiscal transparency for the partner countries, so it's two sides of the deal, and some other elements are included there. I can elaborate on that if needed. So now down at the level of the Commission itself. Of course, the Commission has a policy on transparency. I won't go into that detail, but more in detail on Europaid, so my previous employer. There's a very high commitment up to the Commissioner Piebalgs on transparency. So that's very clear. Karen met with him in June, I think it was, and he made it fully clear that transparency is very, very high for him on his priority list. So as I said, we have done the IATI implementation on 14th of October. My successor also made a joke about it, because he said, you have been working on this for 3 years and I'm here for 2 weeks and I have it up and running, so how difficult could that be? I said, well, thank you very much, because my experience with the IATI process internally was not easy. It was always said that it's technically difficult, but in the end it turned out not to be that difficult technically, because our people, once they started really working on it and put this in our data from our system into this so-called XML format, it only took them basically 2 months, 1 or 2 people working on that full time. So it was very quickly done from July until the end of September, beginning of October. The point was that we needed to get transparency between the ears of the people, the mindsets between the ears, I think a Dutch expression, but you know what I mean. And that was really difficult, because it was not a priority. And it was done by other technical people, not by me, a simple policy advisor on aid effectiveness. I don't have a clue how these systems work. So we had to rely on them, but they had their own priorities. So once we got this on a priority list, we found it quite easy to advance. So I think that's a kind of lesson learned. You need to do change management. You need to have it prioritized. You need to have high-level commitment. You need to have a kind of project approach, capacity, and then again, as already said by Karen, you can use your IT systems which you already have available. So that's where we basically stand for now at these 3 levels. So what's upcoming, already mentioned by the High Commissioner, is of course Busan. The Busan outcome document includes paragraph 20 on transparency. We can argue, is it good, is it not good enough? But basically I would say if we take out the brackets and keep the language in between the brackets, then I think we are heading in the right direction. But that still needs some negotiation, which will take place, I think, on Friday by the so-called Sherpa group for Busan. To me, I think IATI is a key element, because this makes transparency operational, and I think the booklet already lays down why this is so important. A big question to me is on transparency, what we will see from, let's say, the emerging economies. Are they going with us? You maybe have seen the Busan outcome document with a lot of we, but we still don't know who we is. Is this the whole world? And the whole world mentioned in paragraph 1, which says, well, all actors, or is it the we, the traditional donors? And we hope for at least, other parties to become more transparent as well. Why is IATI so important? Because I think you kind of fulfill the ACRA agenda commitments. There's already this standard developed. We did a lot of work the past 3 years, which was not always easy, but we managed to get it out. And it's based on the so-called DAC CRS standard already. So for those donors, the DAC donors, it's quite easy to take it on. There's a learning curve of the early implementers, and we can learn from them, and we can share our lessons learned. And there's it's allowed to have a phased approach. You don't have to put it up and running everything. It's what Karen said, publish what you have basically is the principle first, and then work to improve your systems and publish the rest. And there's also a good technical support team from the IATI Secretariat, so I think that's why IATI should really figure in Busan. Busan itself has, of course, this outcome document, but there's also this so-called building block on aid and fiscal transparency. This is led by the World Bank and supported by Sweden and the Commission. And that's two sides of the coin, is aid and fiscal transparency. There will also be a thematic event about predictability, also led by the World Bank. Predictability, of course, very much related with transparency. And I think there's still this discussion ongoing on future indicators. The EU is of the opinion to keep the indicators as they are. They include 2 indicators on predictability, very related to transparency. And I think this kind of work can come on top of these indicators, which is a very useful input, I think. So, what are the challenges for the EU then at that level, from the international to the EU level? As you will see in the book, there are only 5 EU member states in the FAIR group, no one in the good group, but as I said, the Commission will perhaps be in the higher up group next year. So that's the Netherlands, UK, Sweden, Denmark, and the Commission itself. And then we have 2, and Estonia is clearly an interesting example, and Belgium in the moderate group, which means that there are 20 EU member states which are in the poor and very poor group. So that already, well, it's clear that there's a challenge for us to work on this. So we have to implement this EU transparency guarantee. The political commitment is there. Implementation, action, as Ernest just said. And I think we, as I said again, we need to reach out. There are 9 of the EU member states, including the Commissions, have signed up to IATI, and we hope to get others on board and then support them in this process, because again, IATI is the key element. So what are the challenges for the Commission itself? Of course, to go up from 9 to first place next year to start with. And the weaknesses are clearly established in your document, so we have to do a bit more on forward spending to be more clear on that and transparent. And the actual project information, and we have a process ongoing for that, which will be started in 2012. And then we have the challenge to get other entities on board. So basically, Europe aid is covering 75 to 80% of Commission aid, but we have also ECHO and enlargement here. We would like to encourage them. They're on 11th, 12th place to go up, but not too fast, so that they will pass us. But let's do it together. We are Commission overall. And then this Tier 8 instrument I mentioned, this is to make the information really accessible to the public. So in conclusion, I think the index is very welcome, very good and timely product, so congratulations Karen and colleagues with that one. Political commitment is there on transparency, no doubt about it. It's high on the Busan agenda. IATI should be the all-encompassing technical solution to this. We need to translate also this aid data, I would say, into aid information. And I would say technically there are challenges, and for a lot of donors there are challenges, but it's manageable. And we need, and I would repeat what Ernest said, to start acting, implementing. And then I think lastly, that's more important even in the end, this information should be used by you, by partner accounts, the public, everybody, and to hold us to account for what we're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.